Welcome back everybody to another HTML tutorial. Today we're going to be learning about attributes in HTML. So think of attributes as a property of an object. So in the previous tutorial we talked about boxes, so things like elements being something like red, so that would be an element of a box, and this element would then contain something like ball1 and ball2. Again, it's just an illustration. It doesn't actually return anything. It just shows these, but you can ignore that for now. So I'm going to use actual tags in this tutorial. So we're going to start with something more practical. We're going to start with images now. You want to make sure everything you're coding is in the body tag, so nothing else should be outside that. Just as a test run, you want to go on your browser and just find any random image, the most random image you can think of. It could be a cat, it could be a football, it could be a tennis ball, it could be a candle, anything as random as you can. I'm going to do that right now. Give me a sec. Now we found the image we want to use. What you want to do now, you're going to right click that image. I should have a tutorial, it's short, that shows you how to create images, but basically you copy the image address of that image. So this Homer Simpson, lovely picture of him, right click it, copy image address, and then go back into your body, right? So now we're going to create a new image tag to put an image on the screen. We're going to do image. So image is a self-closing tag. It's not something like image and then you have a separate closing tag. It doesn't work like that, because you can only put an image in the image. You can't put anything else. It's not text. You can't put an essay in there, so there's no need. You just close it on its own. And inside of the tag, so before these two symbols, you're going to type in source, src, as in src, equals, and then quotes, and then in between these quotes you paste that image that you copied before. You can either Control V or just right click and paste, and once you save that, it should show on the screen Homer having a mental breakdown. So that's just an example of attributes. Attributes are just a property of a tag. So the source property, as in the source of this image, where the image is coming from, is one of the attributes. Another attribute we can set in this image is the width of the image. So we can do width equals, and then quotes, and then in the middle of these quotes we put whatever width you want. You can play around with it. I'm going to put 500. But for some reason the height has increased as well. If you go back to the way it was like this, and if you go forward it increases the whole size. We want just the width to change. The reason it does this is that it adapts the height of the image to the width. So if we don't specifically control the height, it will just scale the whole image. So we can put height equals, we can set it what it was originally. We just do 200, and now the image is starting to stretch. If we put 1000 on the image width, it should stretch to past even the page borders. So, you know, those are just two examples of some attributes you can have for images. There's a lot more you can have. If you have VS Code and you press Control plus space, you should see a list of attributes that you can use. You can ignore these Araya attributes for now. And all these attributes are useful in their own way. They all have something to do with the image. So that's going to segue into the next attribute I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about two more, which are the main ones, the more important ones. The attribute I'm going to talk about is alt. So this alt attribute just contains what is going to be shown in case the image doesn't load. So if the user were to, I don't know, load up the page and their internet went out for some reason, whatever reason, if it couldn't load the image because, you know, it's on the internet, you can't access the internet with no internet. So if the user couldn't load the image, it would just put whatever's in here instead of this. And it helps screen readers as well, people who have visual impairments. So the way you go about it is put alt, so alternative text, basically. You can read the description if you hover over it, and equals to, same as before, and then quotes, and you can either put what you want or you can put what the image is. So right now I'm gonna put Homer having a breakdown. Just because my internet is on and I don't really want to turn it off, I'm just going to change the link to something that doesn't exist, basically. I'll just change it to a bunch of random characters, save it, and you can see now there's no image. So if the user were to load this up and their internet went out, they would not have a clue. Number one, they wouldn't have a clue that there was an image there. And if they did see it, they wouldn't know what it's there for. So this alternative text just helps the reader decide what that image is supposed to be. So I can replace it with Homer having a mental breakdown. And if I save it, you should see it shows this little icon thing showing it's an image. And then it says Homer having a mental breakdown. That's just one example. The other two examples, which are the most important and they basically exist for every single tag possible, are the ID and class tags. I'm going to start with the ID tag. Just ignore that I meant attributes, not tags. So as you can imagine, an ID means it's a unique identifier. So two tags should never have the same ID. You don't want to do that. And it's just a unique identifier to reference tags when you're using other languages. For example, CSS. If I were to put an ID of Homer in this, I would go to CSS, which is for styling, and I would reference this Homer, this tag with the ID of Homer, and then style it however I wanted to. It doesn't show anything up on screen, but that's just a useful thing that everyone uses, something that everyone uses. And the other thing is class. So imagine ID as making a tag one of a kind, different to everything else, unique. But imagine class making the tag one of many. So I could have an ID of Homer breakdown 1, and I could have the class as Homer. So it would belong to a group of Homers. I've just added another Homer picture so you can see what I'm talking about. For this one, the breakdown one, we can give it a unique ID. So this is Homer breakdown 1. It's unique to this picture. But for this one, this second one, Homer's sitting down with whatever that is in his hand, you can give that picture the same class as this picture. So these two can have the same class of Homer. Let me just do it here. Class equals Homer. And they have the same class, but this picture has to have its own unique ID. So the ID should be something like Homer sits 1, something like that. Just something different from the rest and something that makes sense to you. And yeah, those are just the most important attributes you can have. There's a lot more attributes that some tags have. I'm going to share the documentation in the description for you to see and just play around with them. And keep an eye out for the next video because I'll be doing a lot more tutorials on this. See you in a bit.